Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast, special edition show, emergency podcast. It was reported on late Friday afternoon that Kyrie Irving had requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. It was actually early afternoon, my mistake. So, the Nets were talking to teams throughout the weekend. There was a lot of drama on Twitter, including a post from LeBron with a couple of emojis. And sure enough, this afternoon, the Dallas Mavericks step up and end up landing Kyrie Irving from the Brooklyn Nets for a package that includes a 2029 first-round pick, second-round picks, I believe, in 2027 and 28, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Dorian Finney-Smith going back to Brooklyn. I do not hate this deal for either side. Let's start with the Mavs. I think the Mavs come out better on this deal for stake reasons, meaning they had a lot at stake this deadline. They had to acquire a named player to satisfy Luka Doncic because he was playing with the land of misfit toys before they landed Irving. And now he has the second scorer in Irving to go with. And Kyrie has a better chance probably to win a championship in Dallas than he did in Brooklyn in a weird way. And that is because of the presence of one Luka Doncic and the fact that the Western Conference is more open than the Eastern Conference this year. So short term, I think it's a fabulous trade for the Dallas Mavericks. And I think that this improves their chances of securing home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. I think they become a more scarier team, even though they hurt their bench a little bit. And I think that Kyrie will play well in Dallas. He's in a big market. Mark Cuban, I think, will be a good ambassador for Kyrie. He's Mark Cuban's just open to anything, and I'm not surprised that Dallas pulled this off. I tweeted on Friday afternoon that if Kyrie were to be dealt, it was going to be to Dallas. And I was correct. Nets. So they land Dinwiddie, who used to be a Net, and Dorian Finney-Smith. So Dinwiddie they dealt in the Harden deal, and then Dinwiddie went to then he was a free agent, then he signed with the Wizards. And then he was traded to Dallas in the Kristaps Porzingis trade that sent Porzingis to D.C. And now he's back in Brooklyn. So, bounced around a little bit over the past several years after Brooklyn traded him in the Harden deal. And then Finney-Smith, a nice role player for Dallas, I think is a little bit flawed. Can occasionally go off and have some big scoring games. 3-and-D guy. But I just think that there are some flaws in his game that are masked because he was playing with Luka and now he's going to be playing with Kevin Durant. Assuming Kevin Durant is not traded. So I like it for Brooklyn too. But there was a better deal out there, and that was the Laker deal because of the possibility of the Nets landing one of those two first-round picks that the Lakers had available in 27 or 29, and we don't know what the state of the Los Angeles Lakers is going to be at that point. I rather would have done that trade if I was Brooklyn. So that's where I say that the return wasn't as great as what it could have been. And Westbrook is better than Dinwiddie and Finney-Smith. And I know it. I believe that they didn't do that trade because I don't think the relationship between Durant and Westbrook is good. I think that's a big reason why they didn't do that deal. But who knows? I think that would have been a better deal for Brooklyn to do. So, winners and losers of the trade. Dallas is a winner. And Brooklyn's a loser because what happens with Kevin Durant now that they traded away his best friend? Does he request a trade? That is a very interesting question that could be answered sooner rather than later, or we'll never know. Other winners and losers of the trade. Kyrie Irving, because he requested a trade and he got out of Brooklyn. And now he's playing with Luka Doncic rather than Kevin Durant, who's hurt right now. Although they were friends, but I made the case earlier that the West is wide open. The East has more tough paths to the finals or tough outs than the West right now. So that's where Dallas and Kyrie are the winners here. I think a big winner in this is teams that are going to sell, like the Raptors and potentially the Bulls, because they're going to want more than what Brooklyn got back for Kyrie for guys like OG Anunoby and Zach LaVine. Maybe they get that Laker package that Brooklyn should have gotten back. I think a loser low-key is the New York Knicks. This is because of past things rather than present things. If the Mavericks didn't make a move for Kyrie, let alone another star that would help that team, then that pick, lottery-protected pick that they got from Dallas in the Kristaps Porzingis deal, could have been in the teens. It could still be like 18 or 19, but it could have been like 15 or 14 if Dallas just sat on their hands this trade deadline or took a step back. But now it's going to end up in like 2021, and then their own pick is probably going to be like in that 15-16 range. So low-key loser Knicks because of the Kristaps Porzingis deal and the fact that Dallas turned Porzingis into Kyrie Irving, and that probably debatable because of Kyrie's antics, but that trade I didn't think looked good at the time they did it, but it looks a little better now because it Porzingis didn't last in Dallas, and one of those picks turned into Emmanuel quickly, so there's some arguments for that one as well. Winners, the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. So two other teams in the Atlantic Division are winners because that opens the door up for them to have an easier path in the standings. And I think another winner is the Cleveland Cavaliers for the same reason. And the loser, I mean, you can make a case the Los Angeles Clippers are a loser, but they could do better with those picks. And then I think the Clippers, you could do better with those picks. And, or not picks, but like young players and assets they have too. So the only like other like team that I consider a loser that wasn't involved in the deal was the Knicks because of that lottery protected draft pick that they that Dallas owes them in the Porzingis deal, and that's not going to look as good as it would have if Dallas just sat on their hands and did nothing. All right, so interesting trade, and we'll see what comes after this trade as the deadline approaches on Thursday. So, I wanted to do a special show featuring this activity tomorrow, but because this Irving trade happened, then I have to do it tonight because there could be another trade tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, and I might have to lead with it on Monday's podcast. So, my 2023 NBA trade deadline primer. So I went team by team, wrote down keepers, summer guys, like guys you could talk about in the summer, crown jewels, who are guys that I think the team wouldn't mind moving away from in the right deal. Must go. There's a couple of guys I think must go from their teams, and I most likely don't. First up, the Atlanta Hawks. This one's a little bit controversial. I have for a keeper DeJounte Murray. They gave up a lot for DeJounte Murray. He had some moments. I don't like the fit with Trae Young, though. And the summer one is indeed Mr. Trae Young. There's a lot of rumblings about Trae Young being the next big name to want out. But that was obviously before the Irving thing, and it could be Durant now. But if things go poorly for the Hawks the rest of the season, Trae Young could be talked about in the summer. Crown jewels. DeAndre Hunter and AJ Griffin. Two young guys that I think other teams are sorting out for deals. Must go, John Collins. He's been in trade rumors for years, and it's just not a fit on this team, and most likely dealt Collins. The Boston Celtics. Keeper, Jason Tatum. Tatum's a star, top 10 player in the NBA, obviously keeper. Summer, Jaylen Brown. The reason why I put Jaylen Brown this summer is because, in case you're wondering, his contract is up next year. And then he'll be a free agent in the summer of 2024. There are some rumblings that he wants more money and yada yada. So I wouldn't rule that one out for next summer. Because if Boston, if contract talks fall apart and Jaylen may look to walk, then Boston might turn around and say, hey, what can we get for him? Crown jewels. Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard, two role players that are very vital to Boston. Must go. None. They're in a good spot. And most likely they'll even say Grant Williams. He's somebody that has hurt them in the playoffs at times, although he had that big Game 7 against the Bucks. And I don't know if he's a fit on this team with Robert Williams back and their ability to play small. The Brooklyn Nets. Keeper, controversial one. Nick Claxton. Yes. One of the players that have made a big leap on Brooklyn this year. I think he's a big building block. He's a great defensive center. He's very improved this year. I look at him as a keeper to build around in the future. Summer. Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons. Durant, obviously, with Kyrie gone now, they got to look at this Kevin Durant situation and make sure he's happy or not, and retalk surfaces with the teams that were interested over the summer. And Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons has not worked out in Brooklyn. Crown jewels, Kessler Edwards and Cam Thomas, two young bench guys who really have showed some flashes. Must go, none. Most likely dealt Patty Mills because Brooklyn has a plethora of guards, and he could be used elsewhere rather than Brooklyn. The Charlotte Hornets, keepers, LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams. Obviously, LaMelo Ball, franchise point guard. Mark Williams really coming along for them as the season's gone on. Summer, Gordon Hayward. I just think there's more options for Gordon Hayward in the summer. Crown jewels, P.J. Washington. I think there's going to be guys looking at him. Him and Rui Hachimura, similar players. I would have put Hachimura as a crown jewel for Washington, but he was already dealt. Must go, Mason Plumlee. He's just a stiff. Most likely dealt, Terry Rozier. I think that Charlotte badly wants to move Rozier as a hefty contract, and I think he can help some teams. The Chicago Bulls. Keeper, Patrick Williams. Really good young player. devastating injury last year, and I think that they want to use him to build around. Summer, DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic. I think more teams would be interested in those guys in the summertime rather than now. Crown jewels, none. Must go, none. And none crown jewels could be good or bad. The Bulls' instance, it's probably bad because they're like stuck right now in a mediocrity spot. Most likely dealt, Zach LaVine. No doubt about it. He's the hot name on the market when it comes to Bulls players, and I think that they are eyeing that Laker package. The Cavaliers. Keepers, we have 3. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley. 3 franchise guys. They're all great. Summertime, Kevin Love. Kevin Love, I know, is somebody that really has embraced Cleveland since being traded there a long time ago, but he's a free agent this summer, so they have a decision to make whether to keep him or not. Crown jewel, Isaac Okoro. They didn't include him in the Donovan Mitchell deal. Maybe they can include him in a deal to upgrade the small forward position. We have no must-goes on the Cavs, which is a good thing for them. And most likely dealt, Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert is somebody that just isn't a fit with the Cavs, and I think they're using him to really move on. And he's also an expiring contract. The Dallas Mavericks, keeper, Luka Doncic. I mean, come on. Summer, Kyrie Irving. The newly acquired Kyrie Irving. He's a free agent, whether to keep him or not. Crown jewels, Josh Green and Jaden Hardy, 2 really young players that I think Dallas would have given up in the right trade. Must go, none, which is good. And most likely dealt, Christian Wood, also on an expiring contract. And maybe the Mavs want to get something for him. The Denver Nuggets, keepers, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, of course. Summertime, Michael Porter Jr. I don't really like Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, like playing like the similar positions. Aaron Gordon's the better fit with Jokic, which makes Michael Porter expandable. So, crown jewels, Zeke Naji and Christian Braun, 2 really good young players who the Nuggets like. But if a super duper star was available for them, I could see them moving on from them. Must go DeAndre Jordan. He's a stiff at this point in his career. They can upgrade that spot. And most likely dealt, I'm going to say Bones Highland. His name's been in trade rumors. I don't know why, but I guess they see something with him that we don't. So the Detroit Pistons, keepers, Jaden Ivey and Kate Cunningham. Summer, Bojan Bogdanovic. They're intent on keeping Bojan right now, but a lot of people like him, and the Pistons really don't need him. And that's why he's there instead of must go. Crown jewels, Sadiq Bey. I don't know why he's in trade rumors. He's a good young player. And must go, Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks, 2 Knicks rejects that Detroit acquired over the summer. And most likely dealt Burks, because Burks can still shoot, and he could help a contender as like an 8th man or something. The Golden State Warriors, keepers, there's only one. His name is Stephen Curry. Just unfortunate that he's hurt right now. He'll be out for several weeks, which is a big loss for them. But they're still the Warriors, and they're going to do everything they can to win as long as their core guys are there. And in summer, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, if things go wrong, they really have to sit those guys down. Draymond as an option for next year, so he could be a free agent, and then Klay Thompson's expiring for next year. Crown jewels, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, 2 really good young players that Golden State refused to trade over the summer or at the trade deadline this past or the year or last season per se. Must go, none. Most likely dealt James Wiseman. They, I think, are dying to get rid of James Wiseman. They realize they screwed up that pick. So I think he's most likely dealt. The Houston Rockets, keepers, Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, and Alperen Sengun. So the Rockets with 3 keepers. Good for them. Summer, none, which is a good thing for them because all those guys are young. Crown Jewels, none. But this is for good reason because those 3 players are all keepers. Must go, Eric Gordon and Boban Marjanovic. Those guys just don't belong on the rebuilding Rockets. And most likely without Gordon, somebody might pay a second rounder for him as a bench guy. The Indiana Pacers, keepers, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, and Andrew Nembhard. So 3 keepers for Indiana. Summer, Buddy Hield. I think that they're going to reevaluate in the summer. And I think they want to give some of those minutes to Mathurin and Nembhard. Crown Jewels, none, but like the Rockets for good reason. Must go, none, for good reason. And most likely to be dealt TJ McConnell. I just think that they're going to trade him to a contender. The Clippers, keeper, Kawhi Leonard. They just have to keep Kawhi. That was their big free agent signing a couple of years ago. And I just think that they just want to keep him around. Summer has to be Paul George because Paul George has a player option next summer, so he's on a semi-expiring next year. And it could be a situation where things don't work out, and the fall guy will be Paul George. And Paul George can get them more back in the trade than Kawhi, only because Kawhi never stays healthy. Crown Jewel, Terrence Mann. The Clippers, for some reason, refused to give him up. But I think they would trade him in the right deal. But they refused to give him up for guys like Mike Conley, for crying out loud. But then again, Mike Conley, I don't think they have to give up Terrence Mann to get him. But, Utah's asking for Terrence Mann, for crying out loud, for Mike Conley. Must go, I have none. Although you could argue for a couple of guys. Most likely, I'm going to say John Wall because I think that they just want upgrade at that position, which would be Conley in theory, or even a big, and they could use John Wall as an asset, the trade to get more depth at other positions. The Lakers, keeper Anthony Davis, AD, it's just amazing. Although you could argue LeBron James for the keeper. But this summer I put LeBron down for the same reason as Durant, except LeBron signed long term. But what if things go bad for the Lakers and LeBron says, I'm not happy. I'm going to request a trade. I mean, you never know. But they got to talk about LeBron in the summer. Although, you could argue Anthony Davis for the summer. But Anthony Davis is a bigger asset than LeBron James from a trade standpoint, arguably, right now. But you could argue those two should be flopped. And I'm going to say that this is an either-or situation. You could argue either-or. But I went with Davis as the keeper and LeBron for the summer. Crown Jewels. Austin Reeves and Max Christie, 2 young guys that the Lakers like, but I think are willing to trade in a bigger trade. Must go. I put none down for them. And then most likely down, I'm going to say Russell Westbrook. He's in a lot of trade rumors lately. Next, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. This is an interesting team. Keepers, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane. And then summer, I have none. That's for good reason. Crown Jewels, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, John Conchar. Those are all young players that I think the Grizzlies would trade in the right deal. And I have none for must go either, which is good. And most likely dealt, I want to go with Dylan Brooks, because I think that the Grizz can upgrade from that spot. The Miami Heat. Keeper, Bam Adebayo. Franchise center, great defensive player. Summer, Jimmy Butler. What if things go really bad in Miami? I feel like Jimmy's more likely to be dealt than Bam because of the age difference. Crown jewel, I went with Nikola Jovic. I think that Miami would trade him in the right trade. Must go Duncan Robinson, just an awful contract. And a guy that they really don't need. And most likely dealt, I'm going to say Kyle Lowry, because they're looking at point guard upgrades. The Milwaukee Bucks, keepers, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Drew Holiday. Summer, Chris Middleton. I say this because Middleton could opt out this summer, so it's like a semi-expiring contract. So that would be the guy they would look at for the summer. Crown jewels, Pat Connaughton. I think the Bucks are willing to trade him in the right deal. Must go, I put none down, and most likely dealt, I put Grayson Allen, because I just think the Bucks are kind of sick of his behavior and immaturity, and literally hasn't changed from Duke. The Timberwolves, keeper, Anthony Edwards, of course, the All-Star snub. He should have been in there. He's fabulous. Summer, Karl Anthony Towns. There'll be more suitors for him in the summer, and I think they know that this is Edwards' team. Crown jewels, Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid. I think these are guys that Minnesota would trade in the right deal. But for some reason, Jaden McDaniels was not in the Gobert deal. And most likely dealt Austin Rivers, because I feel like Austin Rivers is always traded. Could have put D'Angelo Russell, but I don't think they would trade him right now. The New Orleans Pelicans, keepers. Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, of course, the big three. Summer, Jonas Valanciunas. That's because that Valanciunas is expiring next year, and they may want to upgrade that position. Crown jewels, they have a lot. Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, and Kira Lewis. And most likely dealt Larry Nance Jr. I just think that's a weird fit. There's a lot of bigs on that team, and I feel like he would be the odd man out. The New York Knicks, keeper, Jalen Brunson, of course, the big signing from over the summer. He's been worth that contract in a big way. Summer, Julius Randle, if things go poorly at the end of the year, or if somebody becomes available, Randle could be a part of a package, or maybe he's a guy that somebody would acquire if somebody were to miss out on a star in the summer. Crown jewels, they have a couple. Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin, three guys that I think the Knicks are willing to trade in the right deal. Quickley's improved a lot this year. Quentin Grimes is a starter, and Obi Toppin just doesn't get the minutes because he plays the same position as Julius Randle. Must go, Isaiah Hartenstein. They have too many bigs. And Hartenstein's just been disappointing, I think. And most likely dealt Cam Reddish. He requested a trade. He's going to be traded. The Thunder. They have a lot of keepers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams. All great players. And that's Jalen with an E-N. Summer, none for good reason. Crown jewels. Jalen with the Y Williams, Lou Dort, and Trey Mann. I think those three guys, the Thunder deal in the right trade for a bigger name that can help them. Must go Mike Muscala, veteran big man that has no business being on a rebuilding Thunder team. Most likely traded Muscala. The Magic, keepers, Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, two really good young players who fit very well together. Summer, Markelle Fultz. They just have to figure out that situation. He's expiring next year, by the way. Crown jewels, none, good reason. Must go, none, also for good reason. And most likely dealt, I'm going to say, is Mo Bamba, who's having a renaissance year and could take advantage of his trade value. The 76ers, keeper, Joel Embiid, of course. A lot of people are throwing his name out as like a potential summer guy, but I would wait maybe 2 summers from now he becomes a guy. And he's under contract long-term, too. So that's why I want to go there. To me, he's a keeper, and he's one of the best 5 players in the game. Summer, James Harden, obviously a free agent at the end of the year. As an opt-out. Crown Jewel, Tyrese Maxey. I think that he would be dealt in a package for like a large name, like if Kevin Durant was available or something like that. Most likely dealt, I'd say, is Matisse Thybulle. He's been in trade rumors, of course. And Thybulle, I think, would have more value elsewhere rather than the Philly. Suns. Keeper Devin Booker, of course, one of the best 15 players in the league. He's hurt right now, but he's a keeper. Of course. Summer, Chris Paul. I just don't see the Suns trading CP right now. He has 2.5 years left on his deal. Crown Jewels, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Although you can make a case, DeAndre Ayton for the summer too. So I'm going to add his name to the summer list because there could be more suitors. But you can make a case that they're probably going to trade him at this deadline to change things up. So I'm going to actually not put him on the summer list. Crown Jewels, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, as I mentioned, I think they would trade him in the right deal, maybe for Kevin Durant down the road. Must go, Jay Crowder. He requested a trade. He hates it with the Suns, so that's it. And then most likely dealt Crowder, obviously. Trailblazers, keepers, Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe. Two guys that I think are the bridge in the future for post-Dame era. And I say Dame's in the summer because Portland doesn't have isn't like close to a championship. And I think Dame would be the missing piece on several different teams. They don't have any must-goes, which is good, but a crown jewel is Nasir Little. I think they would trade him in the right trade. And most likely, Delton would say is Josh Hart. The Sacramento Kings. Keepers, Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, of course. Summer, none. Crown jewels, I put Davion Mitchell because I think they would trade him in the right trade. Must go. There's no must goes on the Kings. And most likely, Dolly wrote Rashawn Holmes because he just doesn't fit well on that team. The Spurs, two keepers, Jeremy Schoen and Devin Vassell. Vassell's been a good player for the Spurs this year, and I like Jeremy Schoen a lot. Summer, none. Crown jewels, none. Must go, Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott. Two veterans who really don't belong on the Spurs, who are tanking. And most likely dealt Jakob Pearl, who is obviously going to be dealt. The Raptors, the keeper is Scotty Barnes. I think that the Raptors want to build around him. Summer, Pascal Siakam. I just think that that's a guy that'll look the deal potentially in the summer with more suitors. Crown jewels, none. Must go, Thad Young, a veteran who really shouldn't be on this weird Raptors team. And they most likely dealt, actually put OG Anunoby because there are a ton of teams after him, and I think the Raptors want to shake things up, and he's somebody that doesn't really fit with what they want to do. And the Utah Jazz, keepers, Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, two really, really great pickups in those trades, respectively for Mitchell and Gobert. Summer, Jordan Clarkson. He's somebody that I think that they'll look to trade potentially in the summer. He's on a semi-expiring deal. He can opt out this summer, so that's why I put him there. Crown jewels, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Beasley and Vanderbilt can help anybody's bench. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is just a young guy that's been passed around a little bit. Must go, Rudy Gay. I just think he's washed up. And most likely dealt Mike Conley, who I think would really help a contender. And the Washington Wizards. This is hard. For keeper, I put Kyle Kuzma with question marks. This is a really bad situation that the Wizards are in. And the reason why I put him in question marks is because he's obviously a free agent this summer, but the Wizards were very open about keeping him. And then summertime, Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe Porzingis rebuilds his value a little bit, and then Beal, I think, could potentially have suitors in the summer. Crown Jewel, Denny Avdija. Rui Hachimura was one, but he obviously was traded. But Avdija is a crown jewel. I think would be willing. The Wizards would be willing to deal him in the right trade. Must go Taj Gibson. He's just awful and washed up at this point. And most likely they'll let him go with Will Barton. Veteran who can help a ton of teams. Expiring contract too. So I think Will Barton is most likely dealt. All right, now predictions for the deadline. Predicting what every team is going to do. We'll go in ABC order again. The Hawks. I think that they might go for like a 2-for-1 or something like that. My prediction is that they trade John Collins. And I'm going to say that they trade him in a 3-way deal that involves the Suns. And the Suns land John Collins. And I think the Hawks get some guys back in the deal. Maybe like Dario Saric. Somebody like that. And I think at the 3-way, I mean that because I think Ayton will be involved too, but I just have to find the team for DeAndre Ayton. The Boston Celtics. I think that the Boston Celtics will stay put. I think they're happy with their team. They made the finals last year and could have won that series if Steph Curry didn't go off. The Brooklyn Nets. They obviously traded Kyrie Irving. My prediction for the Brooklyn Nets is that they trade Patty Mills, or they buy him out. And I think that Patty Mills would fit on a lot of different teams that could use some guard depth. Maybe it's to Denver for Bones Highland. I can see that potentially happening. And be Patty Mills plus stuff to Denver for Bones. So I'm going to say that happens. I can see Denver making multiple deals, by the way. Charlotte, I think they trade Terry Rozier. I don't know where he goes. I think the Lakers are a good destination for Rozier. I think there are some other teams that could use Terry Rozier's services. But I'm going to say they trade him, but I don't know really where. The Chicago Bulls, I'm going to say they trade Zach LaVine to the Los Angeles Lakers for Russell Westbrook and the 2027 and 2029 unprotected picks. That just makes a lot of sense. LaVine with LeBron and Davis in LA, and the Bulls get Westbrook and those 2 picks, and they're happy. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I know they want to upgrade at small forward. I think they're going to do that and use Karis LeVert for it. But where do they go to upgrade a small forward? The answer to that question is that they call the Blazers. And I think that they're going to acquire Josh Hart. And then they could go small. And I think LeVert's in the deal. And maybe like a second or something like that. So I'm going to say Josh Hart to the Cavs. The Dallas Mavericks, I think, are not done. I think they trade Christian Wood. But the question is where? Who needs a big that could start for them? I think there's a team that wants to go for the playoffs. But I don't know if this would make sense because I don't think Wood would resign with this team unless he accepts a bench role with a certain player coming back from injury. Let's go balls to the wall. Let's trade him to the Oklahoma City Thunder for a first round pick, maybe slightly protected, first rounder, a top 12 protected pick. But a future one, not this year, from them, and maybe one of those Clipper picks for Christian Wood. So yeah, let's go with a Clipper pick for Christian Wood for the Thunder. Now to the Nuggets. I mentioned the Bones Highland trade for them. I think it's potentially to Brooklyn for Patty Mills, maybe, plus stuff. I think another position they have to upgrade is backup center behind Jokic. There's a couple teams out there that have a lot of bigs. And another one and I'm going to go back to the same team I just went to, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I'm going to say that they trade Muscala to Denver for a second. So Muscala upgrade over DeAndre Jordan. He can shoot. You could play small with him a little bit. So I like that for Denver. Detroit. I think they trade Alec Burks to a team that needs some shooting and a team that could use depth at that position. And I'm going to say Sacramento gets Alec Burks for a second. The Warriors, they obviously need to make big upgrades. And there's an obvious one sitting there, and it's James Wiseman and a second-round pick to San Antonio for Jakob Poeltl. That is just way too obvious of a trade. It upgrades them at the center position, and Wiseman changed the scenery in San Antonio. The Houston Rockets. I think Eric Gordon's finally going to get traded, and I think that the team that gets him is a team that can use some bench shooting. And I'm going to say it's to Minnesota, and I could see it being for Austin Rivers, and then Rivers gets bought out, or to Minnesota for a second. So let's go with Eric Gordon to Minnesota for a second. The Indiana Pacers, TJ McConnell obviously is a name that I think they're going to trade. And he could help a lot of teams. And I think he's a perfect bench point guard and is an excellent backup. I think the funniest potential trade out there would be him going to Milwaukee for Grayson Allen. Because then everyone's going to be making jokes about Grayson Allen on Indiana, and I could see that being a big deal. But I could see a surprise team swooping in for McConnell, like Orlando or something like that. But I really don't know if that would make sense for Orlando to do. But I'm going to say that McConnell ends up... That's a really, really hard one. like super duper hard. So let's put him on the oh my goodness, I really don't know where to put him. Atlanta to back up Young and Murray. That wouldn't make sense. I don't think it's going to be the Clippers. I don't think it's going to be Memphis. I don't think it's going to be Miami. But I could see it being Philly. So let's put him back in Philadelphia as he'll back up Maxey and Harden. And off the bench for them. And then back there I'll go with Kirk Maz and a second or something like that. Clippers. For me, I think it's Mike Conley. That just makes a lot of sense. I think that it really makes sense for the Clippers to upgrade that position. Conley would like playing for the Clippers. And I would say John Wall goes back to Utah and maybe a second. The Lakers, I already predicted Zach LaVine there. But I think backup big is necessary for LA too. And a guy that makes sense for the Lakers is Taj Gibson as like a veteran backup big. So I'm going to say the Wiz buy him out and he goes to LA with the Lakers. The Grizzlies, I think they're in it to win it. I think they are going to make a huge splash. And the man that I think they're going to acquire is OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. I think that they will trade 3 first-round picks and Dylan Brooks to get it done. And Dylan Brooks will be a Raptor. And they don't give up Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, or John Conchar. Maybe one of them goes in the deal too, and it's Brooks and one of those 2 and 2 picks. But let's actually do Zaire Williams, Dylan Brooks, and 2 first-rounders. I really do like that trade for Memphis. Miami wants to upgrade at point guard. They like Kyle Lowry, but they realize that he's more like Mike Conley at this point in his career rather than somebody like even I'm trying to think of like a Drew Holiday. That's a good example. But I don't know where Lowry or what team would make sense for Lowry. Like, would Phoenix for Chris Paul or something like that? I don't know. So let's say they keep Lowry for now and then revisit that in the summer. So what I think Miami's going to do is that I think that they dump the Duncan Robinson contract and attach some picks to it and put them in San Antonio's cap space. So they can clear up for a max spot in free agency, and then they deal with Lowry over the summer. The Milwaukee Bucks, I already thought that or made up that fake trade for Grayson Allen. So I don't know if that one will actually happen. I don't think it will, but just that for shits and giggles. But I do think they're going to trade Grayson Allen, but it's not going to be to Indiana. And I think that they want to trade him somewhere that they can upgrade at that position. So I think they trade him to Utah for Malik Beasley, and I think maybe the Bucks throw in a second with Grayson Allen for Malik Beasley. Minnesota, I already made up a trade for them. So I don't know if they really will do anything else. New Orleans, I almost want to pull the trigger on OG Anunoby for them. But I think that they fell too far down in the standings without Zion to really just go balls to the wall. So I'm going to say that the Pelicans end up staying put, believe it or not. The Knicks. I think the Knicks are under some pressure to make a move. They've fallen off a little bit because of Mitchell Robinson getting hurt, but they're somehow still sitting in 7th place in the East, and I think that's because of the struggles of their competition, like the Hawks and the Bulls and teams like that. But I'm going to predict that the New York Knicks trade Cam Reddish to Utah with the 2nd-round pick for Jared Vanderbilt. I think that they want to change things up, and I like Vanderbilt as a bench upgrade for them, especially at the big position. I don't know if Obi Toppin will be involved in the deal, but I do like Vanderbilt for them as a backup center. And I don't think that a fit with him and Obi Toppin off the bench together is all that bad. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I made a prediction trade for them to make a surprise move. And I traded Mike Muscala for them, so I'm not going to give out our prediction for them because I already put them into predictions. The Orlando Magic. This is a good one. I am going to say that the Magic, they're going to be rumors for them being like the dark horse team to make a trade for somebody, and it doesn't happen. The Philadelphia 76ers, I made a trade prediction for them already earlier in the show. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I did for Rashawn Holmes. Or not for Rashawn Holmes, for TJ McConnell. Rashawn Holmes is going to be involved in this fake trade, as I have them acquiring him from Sacramento for Matisse Thybulle. I really do like that potential trade for them because they have 2 former Sixers back. That's just coincidental. But they are upgrades over players that they have already playing for them. And better matches. The Phoenix Suns. This is a good one. I have them trading Jay Crowder to the New York Knicks for Isaiah Hartenstein in a second. I like this a lot for New York and for Phoenix. Phoenix gets a big that could back up. And I have John Collins going there too, and I have Ayton going to another team. Just have to stay tuned. So, fun trade all around. And the Knicks bench gets better, and then they take advantage of their big man depth. The Portland Trailblazers, they're in a weird spot. I think they want to keep Damian Lillard happy. I do have them trading away Josh Hart. But I do think that they want to make another move. I think they want to upgrade at center. I think they're going for DeAndre Ayton. But Yusuf Nurkic will not be a Sun. He'll be on a third team. I'm going to say that Portland acquires DeAndre Ayton in a 3-team deal that involves John Collins going to Phoenix. I think that Yusuf Nurkic goes in that trade to Atlanta, but maybe Atlanta flips him somewhere else. And I think that he can end up on San Antonio. And maybe San Antonio's in this trade. Or maybe the Wizards are in this trade somehow. So I'm going to say that the Wizards are in this trade too, or in a separate trade. So I'm going to say the Blazers get Ayton, the Suns get Collins, and the Hawks get some stuff. Maybe Nasir Little, maybe Saric. There's a lot of moving parts here. And then I'm going to say that going to Washington is Yusuf Nurkic. And back in return, I'm going to say they get Will Barton. That's just crazy. And I could see Portland doing something like that. Sacramento, I made a couple of trades up for them. Rashawn Holmes. And then I had them getting somebody else too. So I think we're good with them. The Spurs, I'm going to say that Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott get bought out. The Raptors, I already did my OG Anunoby thing, and I think they'll also buy out Thad Young, and he'll end up on a contender of some sorts. Utah, I did Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt trades for them, and I did Mike Conley too. So Utah's been used enough, so I'm not going to make another prediction for Utah. And then the Wizards, I have them buying out Taj Gibson. I have them dealing away Will Barton. And I'm going to predict that teams are going to be going hard after Kuzma, and Kuzma ultimately stays put in Washington as a Wizard. All right, so there you have it for the trade deadline podcast, and obviously talking about the Kyrie Irving trade as well. Hope you guys have a great Sunday night, and we'll talk tomorrow.